everybody. My name is Denise Woods Goldstein, and we have a group of very educated, certified, smart men as our panelists that are going to share some views with you today. We encourage you to ask questions. We do have a mic runner, so just give us a show of hands when you have a question. I'm going to start off by asking the gentlemen to each introduce themselves very quickly, your background. Let's start with you, Matthew.
Yep,
Use the mic there, please.
my name is Matthew Van Heist. I work for TechNet Canada as Operations Director. I've been in the business for a little over 15 years. Started as a field service technician with CompTIA Plus certification, MCSE, back in 1999, and have worked almost every job in our organization from field services to help desk to technical support to management.
Great. Bob?
My name is Robert Tuckelman. I'm with Microsoft Canada, but as a premier field engineer, I got one of the coolest jobs around. But before that, I was a Microsoft certified trainer and responsible for actually certifying almost 200 certified trainers themselves. Go back to the early days of certifications, and we take a look at our certification numbers. You get an MCP. We're up in the 5.5 million numbers, so I was one of the first 10,000 people certified ever in the world. So.
Wow. Ron?
So my name is Ron Stewart. I'm currently a technical specialist with Lexmark Canada. Like Bob, I actually started off also doing technical training as well. Was an MCT for a number of years, the MCSE certification and so on. And have worked as a technical trainer, as a consultant, doing support, project management, even dabbled in that a little bit, technical writing, all sorts of stuff.
I'm Todd Allen. I work for Best Buy Canada, more specifically for Geek Squad and for Connect Pro. I've been with the company for 11 years this summer, and I started getting my A+, working in the stores. Did store management for about 3 years before I went to the head office, and now I work on the national team, and we run the Geek Squad and Future Shops version of Geek Squad Connect Pro, that business.
Great. Well, welcome. So I'm going to start off with, we've heard a number of different statistics today. How do we get youth involved or interested in getting into IT? It seems to be our biggest challenge is some of these teachers, these educators are having trouble getting the kids into the programs because they don't think it's cool enough, or they have a perception that they'll be locked in the back room with a Linux box, not really talking to anybody. So how do we show them that it's everywhere? Anyone want to take this one first?
Well, Microsoft has had a significant change in the last year and a bit, and we've opened up a number of retail outlets. I don't know if anybody's been out to Metrotown and taken a look at the
Show of hands,
store
anybody
out
been there?
Very similar to the Apple device stores. You know, you go out there and on the weekends, I'm just amazed, and there are people dancing in the causeways with an Xbox community. It's building a feel to it. But we've got a series of summer camps that are free, announced recently. So if you want to go to the Microsoft store, you can register your own kids or encourage your kids. And so there's a whole series of summer camps, 2 hours a day, 4 days a week for free on how to develop games, and it's all around that kind of that fun aspect and range, in that, high school to middle school kids.
Excellent. Is there only the one store, or is there just
Oh, no, it's across all the Microsoft stores. We've got 6 now open in Canada, but the one in Vancouver is at Metrotown.
Now,
Okay.
more than that,
Yeah.
we have Microsoft stores in almost every Best Buy and Future Shop, major city center.
The in-store experience, yes,
Yes.
exactly, yes.
Store within a store.
I think I want to build on that, and really it's getting devices and technology in people's hands, especially at the younger age. I think of my 3-year-old and 8-year-old. They can use touch devices like I can't believe. And in the schools, the more different kinds of devices and different technology, because there's so many different directions people can go. Finding that passion, that direction that one individual may want to go. If you say, this is what computer services or this is what your future looks like, and just give them one device, they're not going to find that passion. They have to find that passion for themselves.
Good point. Okay.
I got a soapbox issue on this one for me. This is not a Microsoft position at all, but I got a daughter and a son in both in high school, and while they're taking technology, they come home and they could not tell you, file systems and how to store files and where to. They can play with the technologies, but actually, understanding the file system and storing files and being able to retrieve them, it's quite appalling to a point that, I open up, go to SQL, and they're going, huh? What do you mean? I just don't touch on something. So they're lacking some organizational skills, behind the technology itself.
Which brings up a good point. What kind of skills are you looking for? Be it certification, is it soft skills, is it community team player? What is it you're looking for in a new hire these days? I spoke to someone today and he said, we have an aging workforce. So the people that I'm interviewing now, the resume is not as important as it used to be because I'm looking for a right fit as opposed to what have you done for the last 10 years? So let's hear from some of our hiring managers. What do you look for?
This is a big topic in our organization. I think the number one thing that we hire for now is attitude and that customer service skill set. It only takes one customer or one technician calling saying the customer, their service scene is in tears to realize that how important those soft skills are and how to manage a customer through their service events. So technology is still important, having those technical skills, but those soft skills and those attitudes are definitely the number one thing we're looking for.
Okay, Todd, you have something to add?
Yeah, I couldn't agree with that more. Soft skills are the number one thing that we look for, and in fact, we say we're not in the computer service business; we're in the customer service business. So, a lot of the technical things can be trained. We do hire a lot of people, train them. We pay for their A+ certifications after the fact, but that spark of interest needs to be there from a technical side, as well as kind of the almost natural soft skill side. So they need to be personable and able to speak to technical things in layman's terms.
Yeah, so like Mark, much the same way. I mean, of course we have a whole raft of engineers building our products and doing that, but most of that happens tends to be in one location, mainly our head office in Lexington, Kentucky, which sounds like a place you'd get David Letterman's top 10 list from, I know. But that really is where our head office is. But that's where the bulk of our engineers are doing that work. Now, the Lexmark office here that I work in, it's a small office. It's frankly, to be perfectly honest, it is a sales office. 10 people. 2 of us are technical. There's me and the Lex tech. So I'm the software person, he's the hardware person. Most of just about everybody else, almost everybody else in the office, with a couple of exceptions, is in sales. And that's a reality for a lot of other companies, especially when you get to the BC region, you get to Victoria as well, where I've lived and worked too, is that you quite often end up with sales organizations. So there again, we come back to the soft skills, the interaction with the customer. And even though I'm technical, part of the reason I got the job is, big reason I got the job is because of my communication skills, my ability to manage customer relationships, and, like I said, customer service, keeping the customer happy, being able to listen to them and respond to their needs. I have my own little soapbox issue that I'll bring this up with. I've worked previously as a consultant, and I saw a number of really promising technicians coming up through the ranks, really technically capable and also quite personable, really good at speaking with customers, which is a very important thing. But then the one thing that always tripped them up, and I'd say, look, you can really go further in your career. You can, if you want to become a consultant or you want to get into management, stuff like that, you want to go somewhere else, got to work on your writing skills. Yeah, sure. So I'd tell them, no problem. So you got to work on your writing skills, because that's the other way we communicate with our customers. Not just in person, not just over the phone, but through writing. And I swear to you, for most technicians, if you gave them a choice, if you said, okay, you can either write me a paragraph with just a quick technical recommendation, or I'll chop off one of your fingers. They would look at me and go, I don't really use the left pinky that much, so please go right ahead. But it can be invaluable, and it can make a real difference between possibly getting a job or, like I said, advancing in one. So it's something to keep in mind. I realize that, not everybody wanted to be an English major when they came into this. But that's another thing, too, in terms of maybe attracting people to it, is to realize that, hey, the technical skills are important, but there's a whole raft of other skills you can bring to this.
and when not to write and to speak. It's how much work gets done through email that shouldn't be done through email. You know, I harp on our guys all the time. Pick up the phone and call them. You know, there's no tone that can be read into an email. You know,
Correct.
you send something as a joke and they pick it up and they're having a bad day and they take it the wrong way, and all of a sudden now I'm getting involved to rectify this issue. So, you know, and it's because people are hiding behind the technology, not wanting to get out and stand in front of it itself. But more to your question, hopefully all of you have heard, Microsoft's no longer a software company. We're a devices and services company. It was a big announcement that this year we've got a new CEO. We've got a major change in our direction. We announced 400 net new jobs opening up in Vancouver specifically in the next year and a half. And it's for a devices and services company. This is not people writing software in the back rooms anymore. This is getting out in front of people, interacting with customers and finding how technology is going to interact with their businesses. And you saw the communication earlier about, you know, platform as a service, software as a service, infrastructure as a service. Microsoft is the #1 player in every single one of those fields. And so how do we communicate that method and that terminology to our customers to have them see us no longer as just a software company? It's a huge portion. Technology, absolutely you have to have it, and you have to understand it. And I don't want to get into our hiring practices, but we go through a 7-interview process. Only 2 of them are technical. And they are not make or break. They are, they're teachable. Because we've had people fail out on the technical because they were too arrogant in that process. And actually, I've had one gentleman argue with me that he was right and he was wrong. And I said afterwards, as we also declined him for no longer proceeding through the interview process. But it is, do they know technology? Are they trainable in it? How do they deliver that technology? But the other, you know, more important ones, the 5, are all peer interviews, team interviews, manager interviews, assessing you as an individual.
Which I guess leads to my next question is, these folks have these students that are graduating with all of these things you've just talked about. Where do you go to recruit? How do you get, I mean, you've got 400, that's a little extreme by the rest of the standards of the room, but where do you look for new hires? Who wants to take it?
I actually go to the colleges, BCIT, Brighton College, any technical college that has a good program that teach fundamental technology skills is where I get. I mean, in the last 3 months I've hired 6 people out of these some of these programs in both Victoria and Vancouver.
Great. Anyone else want to add to that? Okay. Next question. Oh, go ahead, please.
We also pull from existing talent within the company. So people who didn't necessarily get their first job in anything sort of technical, we can realize that, hey, this is someone that's smart, keen and interested in it, and we can pull them into that. And then of course the internet. So another point in getting devices in students' hands, they need to look for jobs, and they're all posted on the internet first.
Excellent. And, you know, we hear this over and over, but I do want to throw it out because this is obvious right here. We've got 4 gentlemen sitting at the table. How do we attract women into IT? It's been you know, we've been talking about it for years. Has anyone come up with the magic formula yet? Because I'm open.
I can speak to this a little bit. We've got more women working in our office than men.
Oh.
But they are not typically in high technology jobs. We spend most of our technicians, most of our technical people are out on the road in the field. And when we post for a field service job, we get 0 female candidates. But when we post for help desk or for more of the background where they're working with, the job description focuses on working with people, we start to see the female candidates coming through. So I think that jobs that deal more with people and are more attractive to women, and I may be wrong, but just from our own hiring and response, that's what we see. So posting jobs in a way that really demonstrates how they work as part of a team and in the workforce as interpersonal type positions. So.
You know, I was somewhat impressed with the number of females that work at Microsoft in technical sides. But that's changing again. With the services, I think we're going to get people looking at us more from a different type of company. But I put a challenge out to this group last year, and I don't know how many were in the room. And I saw a need that could be filled based around a recruitment process that has happened at your level. And for years, I'm sure some of you guys have worked with, there's a role in the industry referred to as a BA or business analyst. And they are required to have an entry-level technology understanding and a business side. And so typically what's happened over the years is the IT guys sit in a room with the finance people and they talk at each other and they come back and said, here's the application you wanted. They go, that's not what we wanted, because they don't talk the same language. And so more and more, and you look at, and they're well-paying jobs. They're BAs, they're business analysts. And we have a program that we run just across the street over here at one of the large international banks. And they're taking internal people and training them to be BAs, because that's how they're finding the quickest way to get them on board. And so my challenge was, the skill set that I had identified was potential nursing candidates. These are people that have a technical capability but want to work with people. They don't want to be full doctors. They don't want to have they have a personal skill set. They love that interaction. And I saw that as a huge potential community as people potentially coming into here, because they want to have interpersonal skills. They don't want to be just technical, but they have the smarts to be able to be taught that technical component. And you go back, Microsoft has a long history, and we were short of programmers. So what did we do? We identified the skill set that was in there, and they were musicians. And there's a huge community of musicians in Microsoft. We have orchestration areas, bandstands within the campus, because at lunch, guys get up and they play, because that's what they were before they came to Microsoft, because we could teach them a language, programming. Their musician skills, their creativity is what was needed at the programming side. We're no longer that company. We need these services. We need people that understand technology, but they have to have those human skills. And so I saw that here's these people that want to be nurses. Here's another avenue for them, that they could come into this rich environment. They don't have to be in the ORs. They could be doing that same thing as being that bridge between the business side and the technical side. And I'm going to handle that whole process. I'm not a project manager. My job is just to understand your needs and skills and making sure that we communicate those properly to the other people.
Great. Anybody else have anything to add to that? All right, so one of the things that we heard in some of the presentations is about interns and co-ops, which is always a great subject. So I'd like to throw out to you gentlemen, does your organization hire interns and co-ops? What kind of time are they in your building or in your organization? Is it paid, non-paid? Help these educators figure out how they can get their students out there in real world, real time.
Yeah, I think internships and co-op programs are a necessary part of the education process. They need that hands-on experience before they can really be valuable to an organization, and we use those programs from all the universities and colleges that we work with. They work well, and it really, paid or not paid, comes from the program. Some programs are paid, some are not paid. We work with both of them. So.
Great.
Yeah, I've worked with actually the Burnaby School District.
Eddie just left.
It's too bad.
Yeah.
And there's actually two girls that I'm meeting with on Monday, and they're starting their unpaid internship for 1 week back in our Future Shop tech rooms. So they're going to be shadowing our technicians and getting a better idea of what that job really is all about. And I think they're going to find that it's a lot more customer service driven, and they're talking to people a lot more than they're in the back repairing computers.
We have a long-standing program called MOC, or Microsoft. There's a career college program where we take people out of the school environments, bring them through an internship, and then from there they can get hired. So just take a look and do a Bing search on Microsoft and an MOC hire process. So a long-standing feature to bring people in out of the schools. Before I joined Microsoft, I was involved significantly through a number of career retraining programs that we were able to set up across the country. And it was a big part of it. It was actually one of the selling features of it, to get people in. And some were paid and some were unpaid. But that whole capability to get in and assess the person, they were usually 4 to 6 weeks in length. Our team that I work with right now as Premier Field Engineers, we have kind of an unofficial process. We're now, it's one of the things we're looking for, and we're looking specifically for females, is I go out and meet customers, I find people that are in the field. If I find a person that I think is a fit, we can offer them an ability to shadow us, and there's a paid process that we can spend up to 2 years mentoring these people, because the role that I'm in right now is something that is just not a technical role, and Microsoft realizes that the money that we put into teaching these people, we just can't have them leaving in 2 years. We need them in these roles for 5 or 6 years, because there is literally a 2-year investment that we'll put into them. So we can't have them just turning over, and they treat you well and they educate you and really nurture you along. And so it's a big program that we have, trying to find those people and bring them in and show them what our culture is, and we're not this perceived programming software company.
Well, I guess that goes back to Lee's presentation this morning, is how much does a bad hire cost an organization? It's a lot. All right, so now I've been to a number of interviews, not 7, but I've been to a couple interviews with your organization. At what point and whom is going to check my Facebook, my LinkedIn, my MySpace, my Twitter, my every social media that you look at the younger generation seems to be on all of them, Instagram, whatever. At what point is that part of the hiring process? Is it before I've ever come in the building, or is it after a number of interviews? And who does it? Is it HR, or is it you as the hiring manager?
It's done at all 7 levels. So I'm just going to give you a ballpark. Again, I have to be very careful. Partly we're being recorded, so none of this is official Microsoft policies. But through the 7 process, there's typically an HR interview that is either done through Microsoft HR or through a contracted company that will have done a background search, report back to HR, criminal background checks records. The HR person will do typical HR, why you joining, doing the kind of 40,000-foot view, and from there they will schedule your first low-level technical. It'll be some Windows questions that they're going to fire at you, and really see how you respond under pressure. But that person, he's checked out your Facebook page, your LinkedIn page. Even as Microsoft employees, I went through it, and you're going through even internal interviews. You can see your Facebook. You get all these, my LinkedIn. Your page has been visited by, and it's a number of people, and it's always more than the number of people than you're physically meeting face to face. And so there's managers that are checking it out. There's peers that are checking it out. We typically work in Canada. I've got there's 27 people on our team. Every single one of them would have checked a page.
Interesting. Todd, did you want to add to that?
It's not an official, part of our hiring guide by any means, but does it happen? Absolutely. And it's usually that whoever's the hiring manager, it's usually their discretion. If they're worried about this, this person looks like they might cut a little loose on the weekends or the weeknights, they're going to check.
I think it doesn't end after the hire. You continue to monitor that, because especially when you have your staff dealing with high-profile customers, you don't want to be embarrassed after the hire has been completed. So.
Is there anything that you gentlemen would share with the group here of settings or things that they could be teaching the students in the classroom to make sure that the weekend pictures of Buddy and his pals drinking beer in a tailgate party are not being accessed?
Hopefully their parents have already taught them online, privacy and security, so that they don't have their first name and their last name as their Facebook profile. Use your first name and your middle name. Use an initial. Use a nickname, something like that, and the likelihood of us finding that is much less, or a predator.
Good point. Anybody else want to add to that?
Yeah, going back, there's no official. You don't have to give over your Microsoft your profiles to Microsoft. It's not an official part of the hiring process that we're going to go scour that. But it's just the nature of the beast right now that, some of us got gray hair. We all did stupid things growing up, but I just fortunate that it took days to develop pictures, and then you had the sober moment to look at it before you decided to burn it, as opposed to in a drunken stupor posting it. There is just that whole attitude of if that's what you're doing now, and you're that laissez-faire about that whole thing, it's what happens. And I was at another large networking company, and I was training a bunch of their engineers, and all of a sudden I started losing all their attention. And I'm kind of like, what's going on? And they're all madly, checking out the company directory and this guy's profile because, he was coming back from London on a plane on a company dime, and he got carried away, drank too much, and assaulted a flight attendant. He had to be, restrained. They landed the plane in New York, and well, guess what? Grounds for immediate dismissal. But they bring up his internal picture. And not to say that that's wrong, but he would not pass a metal detector. I'm just going, how did this guy get past HR? It was like a mug shot. But it's just, what do you cite as your business profile? And do you have to wear ties? It's not that kind of industry anymore. We have customer profiles that we are actually expected in some cases to wear ties to customer sites, and we have to be prepared to go in that way.
Interesting. All right, I'd like to open up the floor here. Do we have any questions from you? I mean, this day is all about you and professional development and learning new things. Is there anything you'd like to ask? Liam.
Wait for the mic, please.
Essentially, I want to talk about the gap. Mind the gap. You all know that one.
Yep.
So we got high school kids, we got kind of grade 9, 10 kids, we got kids putzing around in the basement on their parents' hardware. Then we got an industry sector, and then you got the bright, shiny objects in Best Buy. How do we help those kids get over the knowledge, the information, and the experience gap? One of the things that's happening in schools is that kids can get some level of experience on the hardware and the software that's available. But the gap is hurtling ahead. We heard from the chap from New Zealand today. The gap, it's just starting to be so big. So the school system actually can't pay to fill the gap. Is there any way, in not just the four of you, but in the broader industry sector, is there some way to reach in and help fill the gap? Did you get my point?
I think so. I don't want to be the one when anybody else wouldn't. I'll jump in.
Yeah, I mean, we've said already getting technology in these students' hands is the number one thing. Future Shop gives away $50,000 to 3 schools every year, and they sponsor those schools. Now, these are usually for their computer labs, and when I went to high school, which was probably not as long ago as some of these guys, but sorry.
Classic King George, by the way.
It was not mandatory for us to go and have a computer class, a typing class. I wrote my first code in a computer class, and that really opened my eyes. But had I not been pushed in that direction from my dad, I would never have taken that course. And I learned later, as taking some more courses as my prerequisites, that I knew more than some of the teachers. I disabled a friend of mine's network card, so he wasn't able to access the internet because he was doing things that he shouldn't have been doing. And my teacher said, "You should know how to do that. Now I need you to fix it." And so basically back to it is we should be pushing students to go into that. It's been no surprise for 20 years that technology is the future and computer skills are important in the job market. So it should be a mandatory part.
I think also on that, another thing that can be looked into to fill that gap, and I think this is probably an obvious one, maybe it popped into everybody's head, it popped into mine too, but sometimes it helps to say the obvious, is to encourage volunteer work. There's lots of opportunities for volunteerism in the community. It's something I know at Lexmark we value. We actually give a certain number of days off to our employees every year to do volunteer work. That's outside of sick days and vacation days and so on. So it looks good on a resume. It's something that most companies value these days. And it's a great way to get valuable experience, not just with the technology, which is crucial, but also with that customer service side of it. And with interacting with people. And a little knowledge can go a long way. And like you said, you can be a lot of times very surprised by finding, I actually do know something to help people out. And quite often, the kid coming in, volunteered, say, at a senior center. My God, some kid coming into a senior center, they go, "Oh, great! You've got to know everything about these computers because you're a young whippersnapper. Come over here and show me how to do this in Windows." They just love it, and again, a lot of reward on both sides there. So I would definitely encourage them as part of that gap. I mean, it's not the only thing that can be done, but definitely as part of it is go out there, look for those opportunities to volunteer, to offer your skills, and to gain some in return as well.
And I think just to add to that is you're looking for opportunities for kids to touch all the hardware, and the funding isn't there to get all the hardware into these kids' hands. Is partner with the business community. There's lots and lots of summer jobs where they can get, especially if they're technically minded and that's a direction they want to go, where organizations can use these kids and use them in a co-op type scenario, and they get the real business experience in the industry.
And I'm going to use Microsoft as some background information, but this is by no way, again, a Microsoft official position. In my role, I am actually monitored, and 30% of my year utilization is allocated to personal development. And it's not just in my technology. And if I don't get my 30% in, it actually shows negatively on my year-end review. So I could be 100% facing to the customer. It will actually show up worse for me than if I was only, they want me to take that 30%, because who better than us to teach us? Because I went from an area where I had to know Active Directory, Exchange, Windows Server, and I'm focusing in on one product now. We have hundreds in our suite. I have to focus in on one, and I'm supposed to be the preeminent person in there. So companies like ours, like many of us, the world's changing. The cloud is changing. You will not be able to keep up. Don't try. Don't. We're going to teach them that because we're having trouble keeping up ourselves, and we're the people running this stuff. Your job is to get them prepared so that we can at least take them and then mold them from there. So I think like some of the ideas that are coming up, teach those core skills and say, listen, I can't get you in front of a cloud-based computer, so guess what? 2 of you guys work on a presentation and teach that back to the rest of the class, and you work on IaaS and you work on a PaaS presentation, so you don't even have to do it. Get them to learn about them themselves. There's more than enough information out there. Have them be able to articulate what those roles are and what they might be used for, and that will serve them better in an interview than actually having them being able to actually program a network switch to be able to use Hyper-V to provision a server. You won't be able to do that. And for me, and I've said this even before, Denise and I've talked about this for a number of years, is this is a great opportunity. And I love to see the light on people going, I'm not getting in that industry. I'm so far behind the curves. These guys have been in it for 20 years. Yeah, there's been people who've been in this in 20 years that probably shouldn't be in this industry anymore because they haven't kept up. Certifications. I've been a big fan of certifications. People talk, I'm an MCSE. MCSE NT4, 35, 2000. That certification had 4 letters that went behind it, but you were supposed to renew it and get new. And so, did you do that? And so, does that stay current? So, there's people, Boeing. Oops. There's large companies that hire MCSEs, but they reset passwords. That's all they do. Because there's such big companies that on a help desk staff, that was a minimum requirement for the job, but they reset passwords all day. That's not an MCSE, And Canadians, we're lucky because a lot of our companies are smaller. They adopt technologies quicker. You take a large U.S. American bank, they have 190,000 workstations. Try and replace those in a couple of years. It just physically can't happen. You go to a Canadian organization, I got 8,000 people. I do that over a couple of weekends. We adopt technology quicker. We as Canadian students, we're going to get in there. They will be like wildfires. They're on the latest technologies. They're doing more of it as opposed to just a narrow focus of it. But we'll train them on that. Your companies are probably picking these people up, and who knows Lexmark printers better than you guys, right? So don't try and do that all for them. The gap is there. Use that as an opportunity to sell them. There's huge opportunity in here. We're going to teach you the presentation skills. You do the research on it. You find the areas you want. And when you get in those companies, I can almost guarantee you, ours for sure, all our competitors, we're allocating huge investments. Going back to the cost, we'll put 2 years into a person and pay them a salary. That's hundreds of thousands of dollars. You can't get that at a university. You can't get that at a community college. Again, not the official Microsoft position.
Kurt.
Speaking about certifications, how much value do you put on industry certification when considering a new hire?
Me personally, huge. absolutely. And again, it should be current. There's people that will, say that I got a certification, and we change our jumbled letters up every couple of years. But you're looking at a current certification. For us, it shows relevance in our technologies, because we wrote the exams, we wrote the certifications, and it's nice that you could go off and learn some general skills at a school or university. Going back a number of years ago, some of you might, IBM used to never hire computer graduates. They just didn't do it. They would hire university graduates from the arts degrees because you'd shown a capability that you could learn, because they said, who can teach us this stuff better than we can? And in fact, we were finding we were having to retrain people from the bad things that they learned in school and having to teach them our way. That has not changed 100%, but yeah, industry-based certifications around a specific vendor. Again, not the official Microsoft. Will it put you ahead in a stack? I can't say, but from previous jobs and previous hires, and absolutely, it had a huge weight in the hiring process.
Thank you.
Matthew?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. If I had a choice between 5 candidates and one of them was more certified than the rest, the fact that they went through that certification, they have the knowledge and they have some experience, because they didn't just read a book and write a certification. They had to touch it and play with it to figure out exactly how it all works in order to pass some of these certifications, and they have a better skill set because of that.
Anyone else want to add to it? No? Okay, any other questions? Oh, sorry, go ahead. You have the mic, and then we have...
Critical thinking skills. Do you evaluate critical thinking skills like problem solving during the interview process, or how important is that?
I had thanks. I had one canned. Whenever I was hiring a tech, I had one canned question that I would ask them, and I'd say, "Okay, we're going to role play a minute. I'm going to be the customer, and you're going to be the tech, and I'm calling you, and my internet doesn't work. Go." So they definitely need that problem solving. They have to say, "Okay, is it a software or hardware issue?" They need to be able to determine that easily. Then you would go through, is it an antivirus or is it a driver problem? Is it that your network card's dead? Do you have a router? Or do you even have an internet service provider? I mean, there's so many questions to ask. And if they didn't know where to start and they were fumbling over it, and I got some of the funniest. Okay, well, I would probably get them to open up command prompt, and I would try to ping, and I'm like, whoa, you know who you're talking to? No, we can't do that. So, yes, definitely the problem solving, and finding the path of least resistance, speaking in layman's terms, is invaluable.
And we're notorious for using acronyms in our industry.
Yeah, I think that the days of those sit down and do the HR profiles, fill in these boxes and stuff, those we don't do those. In our process, there's a minimum of 2 technical interviews, and very much it's that interaction. I'm asking you questions, how would you solve this? And it's not ever yes or no, black or white. It is this ambiguous question, and it's how are you going to answer it, and what are your analytical skills? And the ones that always seem to do well are the ones that say, if I understand you correctly, what you're saying is, they just don't go, oh, it's this, or it's your TCP. It's not that arrogant, I know what the answer is right away, because you forgot to ask some questions first, because it might not have been as obvious as I was looking at front. And I can guarantee, at least in the second interview, it is there to make you sweat. I'm going to ask you questions that there is no way that unless you are at my level working internally that you will know what the answer is, and I want to see how you answer it. And it's amazing how many people lie. Maybe that's a wrong, fudge, or they make a, you can't do that. And I say this to people all the time, the right answer tomorrow is better than the wrong answer today. Just because you're expected to give me an answer doesn't mean you have it. And if you don't, tell me that, be honest, and that's what we need to hear. So it's how do you handle that pressure of when you don't know something is going to be that real litmus test, and not how well you did on the great ones I expected you to get.
So do you think that the education, the students are coming in, they're being taught critical thinking skills enough, or is that still a need in the education system?
Wow, I'd hate to indict the entire medical or educational system based on the people that I've interviewed. unfortunately, some of this is a skill you can't teach. You can nurture it, you can propagate it, you can take someone who doesn't have it and maybe give them a bit of it, but at a certain level, there's people that have it and there's some that don't. And, I always use this as an example. I'm not a musician. I appreciate music, but for me, the movie Amadeus, where there's a scene right near the end, he's writing a piece of music and it's playing in the background. He goes a piccolo, and he heard they play the note and he writes it down. Like, people think differently, and I don't expect everybody to think like I did, because it should be a pretty boring world if it was. But there's some people that have that capability of just not jumping in and fixing the problem. It's kind of like step back, because sometimes it's not just that problem. It's really that was the result of what really was the problem, which is something else. And just not that charging ahead for, I got to fix this, I got to fix this, I got to fix this.
Right?
So, I actually have a Bachelor of Education degree, and I did teach school for a while, so I will indict the education. No, I won't. I won't go there.
Okay, our turn.
But, our attitude towards education overall, I think even as educators, you've probably encountered this, not just from students, but also probably from parents and just people in general. There seems to be this attitude that the whole idea of education is to just learn facts and spew them back. And we know as educators, nothing could be further from the truth. But people get that, and students, unfortunately, will also get that idea. And this is what can impinge, I think, on the critical thinking skills, and where you can get this stuff in the interview where the kids just, or the young person, or whoever it is sitting there going, I don't know it, and now I don't know what to do. I don't know the fact. And also, too, that can be what freaks them out, because they thought, this is what education is about. This is what knowledge is about. It's about knowing a fact and spewing it back, and now I can't do it, so I fail. That's not necessarily the case. And that's an important thing to get across to them, is it isn't just knowing the facts. Yes, that's the basis of knowledge, and it's important, but there's more to it than just that. So, I mean, as educators, that's something to really just emphasize continually, day to day with them, is there's more to it than just knowing when the War of 1812 was, which was always one of my favorite trick questions.
Yeah, I think that, I think there's an opportunity for you, because there's this cultural thing that happens. Ken thinks that they know everything, they're cool, and how do we tell them not? You got gray hair, you don't know more than this. And I like to prove to my kids every day that I'm the smartest guy in the room. And there'll come a day that maybe they won't think that anymore. But
Has it already happened?
I keep bringing out the Mensa card on them. You pass the test, you get in. No, but I think that if you were to engage them, and it goes back to something I said earlier, was there are facts that we can teach them, and we're responsible to make sure that curriculum's there. But throw some of the burden back on them, and engage them and say, listen, I want you to do the research. There's a mountain of it out there. Whether you spend time at the Microsoft store and go talk to a guy and spend an hour with him, they could learn more by taking that initiative and spending an hour with one of your guys who's just sitting around in the store. And he'd love to have that opportunity. I'm sure you'd love to see your guys get that opportunity as well. Go talk to your dad and bring him into work, and go talk to the IT guy for half an hour and have them come back and report it. And so make it more of this peer learning, and then have the students ask them questions, so you can sit back and you can guide this whole thing. And really what you're there then is to say, listen, you could have handled that better. You could have asked more of a question, and then more of that soft skill. So hopefully that gap is not something you're trying to fill. You're trying to teach them how to get over that gap and have the courage to stand at the edge and make the leap sometimes, not knowing that there's a platform on the other side. You got to take the jump.
Very good. Alan, you're up.
Yes, thank you. I couldn't agree with you more when you talk about certifications. But I've heard many times that the soft skills are as important, if not more important, than the certifications, because of the fact that a lot of people are really good at memorizing and passing an exam, whereas they are absolutely horrible at dealing with somebody else. As people that are interviewing and hiring, how do you put a value on their soft skills? How do you measure that? Is it just their response, and as educators, how do we try to get back to our classes and our students that these things are just as important as getting your CCNA or A+, or etc. You need to be able to deal with people, because the guy in the little room in the back is no longer there. He may be the guy that's selling you that computer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we often have certifications as a prerequisite in some of the jobs that we post for. So I mean that's mandatory. So we'll have 2 individuals, both of them with the same certification, but one with 2 years of experience, or one with 2 weeks of internship at Microsoft or at Best Buy, and that's valuable. That's where they're going to learn that, hey, a customer doesn't want the answer that I would be giving on a test. The customer wants the problem solving. They want the problem solved. So how do we get there? They're going to have that skill, and so you really can't put a price on experience, and that's sort of, I hope that I've explained how important that is and how that fits in.
And if you wanted to get to something that's more defined, it's to say, listen, I've heard at Microsoft they have a 7-interview process. Only 2 of them are partly technical. So what's happening in the other 5, do you think? Just mathematically. They're not testing you out. It's peer interviews, asking you questions about what you do on the weekend. I do nothing. I sit home and guess what? You might not be. So it's not just the ability to have critical thinking, results and stuff. It's, are you a fit for our culture? Are you a fit for our team? And so you'll have a peer interview. You have the HR interview, pretty straightforward, and we can teach to that. You'll have the entry-level one. We can teach that. Certifications will get you through that. Well, that's 2 of the 7, right? What are you going to do in the other 7? And if you say, well, I don't do anything. I don't sail. I don't horseback ride. I don't volunteer. That's what's going to get you through those other interviews. And you could very clearly tell your students, if you want a job at any of these other companies, I'm going to say that probably 3 or 4 at all your guys, that, the technical is a quarter, a half, a small portion of what's going to get you through that. And it's not always just the critical thinking. It's, are you a fit for their culture? Are you a fit for their personality? Are you a fit with the team? Are you manageable? Because there's 2 manager interviews you got to go through. And one's your direct manager and one's a hiring manager. So there's this whole process of non-technical evaluations that is far outweighed by the technical certification. It gets you in the door. It helps you a whole bunch. And it can distinguish you from someone else, but absolutely it is not going to be the thing that gets you the job.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to add to it? Okay, we're past time here now, so I would like to thank these gentlemen for sharing their insights with us. Please help me with a round of applause. Hopefully you found that a valuable 45 minutes. We want to remind you to fill out the teacher survey, to put in the box there to win some great prizes. Please note that we will be sending out a survey on the event itself, online, on the venue, on the food, on the sessions, and we really look forward to your feedback. I've heard some valuable stuff already today. I'm going to turn it back over to Randy now, and thank you again for your time, gentlemen.